Hey everyone, Hourology Fanatic here, and today I wanted to review the Ratio GMT Freediver watch. Now, this was a gift from Ratio themselves, and for some odd reason, I took my time, deciding to review this watch. Instead of just taking a week, I wanted to take like close to a month. It's been a month since I had it, and I've been busy with life lately, and I just couldn't really pump out the review. So I've just been taking my time really wearing this watch, and I figured it's about time, I give a review of this watch. It's been around close to a month since I had it, around 28 days, 27 days. But, we'll just round it up to a month, and I figured it's about time I give my review on this watch. So this watch, let's just bring down the specifications real quick, let's get that out of the way. So it is 316L steel. It does have sapphire and AR coating. Like, it doesn't look like it, but there's actually like a slight blue tinge to the sapphire. And it is the NH34 movement, which is the Seiko like generic GMT movement, which is a good movement. It's a decent movement for what you're getting. Let's see, what else am I missing? So in terms of thickness, it is around 13.60 or 13.6 millimeters in thickness, 20 millimeter lug width, and lug tip to lug tip, not counting the male inlinks, I believe is around 47.5. Might be 48, but if you count the male inlinks, I'm pretty sure it rounds up to around 50 or 49. All right, so let's talk about the watch. What do I think about the watch after close to a month of wearing it? I think that it's decent. It's not perfect. Like, there's obviously some flaws you can talk about, but I think for what you're getting, the watch is mostly decent. Like, for example, the GMT movement is cool. I'll be honest, I personally don't really use GMTs because I don't have a use for them. I'm usually the type of guy where I do math in my head if I just want to know like a certain like time frame, and I don't really travel a lot, unfortunately. So I don't really have many uses for a GMT, but it is pretty cool, and like the red GMT hand is really cool. So I'll show you how it works real quick. So when you unscrew the crown, and the crown fretting on this watch is nice, by the way, it's like not bad at all. But when you unscrew the crown, take it up to the second position. You can actually move the GMT hand, so like check it out. You can move it freely, and you can just set it to a certain time zone you want. I'm not really good with GMTs, to be honest. I actually sometimes even forget how they work because my memory is not that good when it comes to like watch knowledge. But you can just control it, and like it's pretty cool just spinning the GMT hand around. Don't do that, by the way. It's not gonna damage your watch, but I don't recommend you do it. Anyways, but that's how GMT works real quick, somewhat. But like I said, I personally don't use GMT. Is pretty cool, but it's a cool complication to have. I mean, at the end of the day, watches are pretty much just wrist jewelry, so it's just something cool to have. It's not necessary to have. But another thing that I like too is the black dial. Like, even though they advertise it as black, let me see if I can get that smudge mark out of the way. Even though they advertise it as black, it's actually closer to a charcoal gray. Like, see if I can put it around the camera so you guys can see that. It's closer to like a charcoal gray. It's not like a true black. Not that it's a bad color. I'll be honest with you guys. I think black can be good in terms of dial colors, but it's not my favorite dial color. Usually there's only a couple watches where I like the black dials. Like, I like the black dial on a Submariner and a Speedmaster, but in terms of most watches, I'm not a fan of black dials. But this one is good. I actually like it because it's a charcoal like black. It's not your average stereotypical black where it's just, plain, boring. This one's a little bit different. Another thing I like too, besides the red color GMT hand, is the red minute hand. Like, it adds a tinge of color along the GMT. And it just, I think it's perfect combination is because black and red has always been one of my favorite color combinations. I'm also a sucker for white and red. We need to definitely see more white and red watches and watches. But those are like my favorite color combinations, Black and red has always been one of my favorites. And in terms of the bezel, it's not a GMT bezel. It's more like a diving bezel with a GMT. Like, the printing is of a GMT, but the amount of clicks is what you would get in a diving bezel. So check it out. See, like, the amount of clicks on that bezel, that's a diving bezel. Now, I'm not sure if that's on purpose by Ratio or if it's a cost-cutting measure, because I know that most GMTs usually don't have that many clicks. I wonder if this is just like how it's supposed to be. But, I don't know too much about certain bezels. Like, I know some bezels are free spinning, like the GMT Seiko is a free spinning bezel. It's not like a bezel that has like clicks. This one has 120 clicks, like a diving bezel. And I know that some GMT bezels have like 24 clicks. For example, I know the Rolex GMT Master 2 has around 24 clicks for each individual time frame. Looking over at the case of the watch, like sides, it does look a big thick, but then you realize how big the undercase is. Like, check that out. The back. So when you wear this watch, you know, even though it's 13.6 millimeters, it's not gonna feel as thick because of the case back. Like, see if I can get that smudging out of the way. But you can actually see that the case back takes a decent amount. Like, check this out. You know, that's like at least a millimeter. So when you wear it, it wears thinner. And another thing too is the polished bracelets or polished center links. Now, polished center links are a bit iffy. Like, some people like them, some people hate them. If you want my opinion, I like them, but I just don't think that it matches this style of watch, in my opinion. I think there should be an option for brush center links because, you know, it is a sports watch, and polished center links on a sports watch doesn't really make that much sense. And I'm not speaking as someone who hates them. I actually love polished center links for certain types of watches. Like, I love it on something like a Rolex Datejust, because I think the Datejust is more of like, I think it's more of like a dress watch, in my opinion, like dressed and sporty at the same time. But this is like a sports watch. You know, Ratio advertises their watches as sports watch. So I think this is, it's cool, but it doesn't make sense to put it. Another thing too that we can talk about is the clasp. The clasp is unfortunately stamped. The issue with stamped clasp watches, and like, there's just less security and it's not as comfortable, you know? Like, if this was molded, it would have been like a major upgrade to the watch, to the you know, to the clasp, and just the way it sits in terms of comfortability, you know? Another thing too is the lock-in measure. Like, I think it would have been better if we had like a beak and a hook. All right, so let's put it on the wrist real quick. I have a 7 3-inch wrist on my left one. I recently lost a little bit of weight though, so it might be 7.5 inches in thickness. But as you can see, the watch fits great, you know? Doesn't really look too big, doesn't really look too small. I think it just looks perfect. So here's like all the way of a hand shot, arm shot with the hands. Here's what it looks like a wrist shot. Doesn't look too big, right? I think it looks perfect. The watch in diameter is 40 millimeters. So it's perfect for the average wrist. You know, the average wrist is going to be able to wear this, even the smaller than average wrist. You can get away with this watch with a wrist as small as 6.5 inches, I'm pretty sure. And it should be able to fit most people comfortably. Let's take it off. And I took a decent amount of links out the watch. I think I took out 3 links, if I remember correctly. So you can fit this watch on a wrist as big as like 8 inches. But then again, it really depends how you measure your wrist. I measure it where the bone is. So right here, where the bone is, and just like right over here. That's how I measure wrist. I measure it where the bone is on the wrist. Some people measure it at the front. I measure it where like a little bit past the bone. That's how I think you should personally measure a wrist. So what do I think about this watch? You know, the bracelet is comfortable. It's not perfect. It's just like right. And I think the movement and the design of the watch is original enough. And, you know, it's not going on a homage territory. It is an original design with the handset and the design, you know, the case. It's not homage, you know. It might take some, like, cues from other watch brands, but that's normal. There's no such thing as a 100% original design anymore. Like, they do exist, but it's so hard to do them without coming off as tacky. And there's really no shame in taking design cues from other brands that are pre-16 brands. Because, I can see, like, a bit of heritage from other watches in this watch. But, what do I think about a month after this wearing the watch? You know, there is some complaints. For example, stamp clasp, bracelet could be better. Polished center links is subjective. Personally, I think it shouldn't be there on a sports watch, but that's subjective. You know, it's not a bad thing. It's just something that's subjective to certain people. Some people may like it, some people might not like it. I just don't think it fits the theme of the watch, but personally, I do like polished center links. So the only 2 things that I think you can improve on this watch, or my complaints, is the bracelet could be a little bit more solid, because when you shake it around, check it out. You see, it has like a little bit of a rattle to it, and I'll even close the clasp real quick, just so you can like hear it for sure. See, it's just a little bit of a rattle, a little bit flimsy. So my major improvement would be like improving the bracelet, make it more solid. Maybe add an option if you want to have polished center links or like brushed center links. Like keep the rest of the theme of the watch brushed. And you know, I think you can just like improve the clasp. So instead of having a stamped clasp, if you can have a molded clasp, then you're doing a lot. You know, that's pretty much my big complaint. Another minor complaint is the sapphire crystal can be a bit like illegible, I think, if that's the correct word. Sorry. But sometimes when I look at it in the lighting, you know, the crystal can turn like a bright blue, and that's because this watch does have AR coating, and AR coating is important for a watch. You need it when you're going around the sun at something bright, and you know, personally, the sapphire is good. All sapphire is good, but I just feel like there's ways to improve the sapphire to make it like more visible, you know, because sometimes I do struggle with legibility on this watch because of the sapphire. Like it's a little bit like unclear, you know. But you know, after a 1 month review, putting aside my bias as much as possible, even though this watch was a gift from Ratio, I think you can rate it a 7 out of 10.